It's the Summer Olympics, London 2012. The USA is at the starting line of the team pursuit cycling event at the Velodrome. The women representing the US are going for gold against Britain. The oldest member of three is a 39-year-old cyclist who nearly died from anorexia and a drug addiction years ago. This national champion, now on the world stage, has come a very long way since then and is about to ride into the record books.
I knew I couldn't go back.
Changes your
You just
life.
put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Welcome to the BUCKiT podcast with Phil Keoghan. Every week I talk to mavericks, disruptors, and innovators. People who ditch the excuses, swerve off the predictable road, and epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it.
I am forever inspired by people taking control of their own lives.
Dotsie Bausch is a 7-time USA cycling national champion, a 2-time Pan American champion, and an Olympic silver medalist. Titles all achieved in a sport that she didn't start until she was 26 years old. This former runway model initially took up cycling to recover from cocaine use and an eating disorder. By the time she got help, Dotsie, who is 5'8", weighed less than 100 pounds. She was desperate and suicidal. Something had to change. Dotsie fought hard to regain control of her life and find a reason to live. She poured everything into getting strong and healthy again, vowing never to go back to the hell she'd created. And it paid off in ways she could never have imagined. Today, this record-breaking athlete, who overcame unbelievable odds to become an Olympian, is a staunch advocate for animal rights. She promotes a vegan lifestyle for everyone, especially athletes, who she says can perform as well on a plant-based diet. Dotsie is living proof of that. She is also a shining example of someone who, after hitting rock bottom, was able to reinvent herself and achieve the seemingly impossible, becoming a champion not only in the world of cycling, but to all people who she inspires and motivates to make a better life for themselves. This is Dotsie's incredible story. Dotsie Bausch, and we are in Santa Monica, California. So we were just talking about the fact that 21 years ago...
Isn't it 19? Is it 99?
It was 98.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
20.
20 years ago. You're right. So 20 years ago,
Really know that we needed to start with that.
not very far away from here, we met for the very first time, and it was because of bicycles.
Yes.
And bicycles being such a huge part of your life, and yet at that stage, when we met, and I think you were 26?
I think probably so. Yes.
Without giving away your age.
Right,
But I'm
thanks for
sorry
that.
about that. Oops. Anyway, you were in your mid-20s somewhere. But you really didn't have a lot to do with bicycles at that time. If I'm not mistaken, It was one of your first sort of major bike rides.
Yes, I hadn't started my career at all. I was just starting to dabble in it. I was healing from my eating disorder and just trying to feel good in my own skin and move my body and enjoy the freedom of the mountains in Santa Monica.
So we were doing a show. It was called Adventure Crazy. It was for the Discovery Channel, and it was sort of like a test first show of that series. And the idea was that we biked from here down to Long Beach. We caught the ferry. We went out to Catalina, and then a group of us, including yourself, we raced a sailboat all the way from Avalon to Two Harbors. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. And I remember the prize at the end.
I mean, there was a high caliber group. So in this high caliber group, there's this woman, Dotsie, and Dotsie's riding her bike for like the first time. And
it was not a good bike.
and it wasn't a great bike, but out of nowhere, Dotsie goes blasting past a bunch of us and just climbs up the hill. And I remember Jeff said, "Man, this woman knows how to ride a bike." And it was kind of your first time ever riding a bike. And I think that was the sign that, wow, I think there's maybe something special in those legs.
Maybe I should consider doing this a few more years.
Yeah. Now, jump to a little while later when I then find out that you really do have this incredible talent for riding a bike. But if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time that you kind of showed the pistons to the world, like your
maybe
cycling
so.
pistons.
I had decided maybe just a few months before that if I was going to pursue cycling, which I just had in my head, like you said, I hadn't raced yet. I hadn't done my first bike race yet at that point. But I thought, I need to get some miles in. And if I'm going to quit my day job, which was in production, making good money, I'm going to make no money. And I'm going to become a bike messenger in downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because I lived on the beach in Venice at the end of Rose and the beach. So it's 26 miles downtown, obviously the same home. And you do about 15 miles a day there as you're messengering. So at that point, I was working as a downtown Los Angeles bike messenger with 50 dudes, because there was not one single woman that was bike messengering. But I picked up a lot of skills from those guys, because I started cycling so late that when I started, I was scary in the Peloton, because so many had started at 10 years of age or maybe 15, and I didn't have any of the skill set. So, I couldn't hop curbs, which is, I couldn't hop big rocks in there. I couldn't hop anything, which you need to be able to do, right?
Especially in downtown Los Angeles, where the roads can get a little rough.
Yes, and on the way to downtown.
So jumping back to how you ended up there that day, because at that point, you even though you were a young person, you'd been to hell and back.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think a lot of people have in their lives, right? So you go deep into the hollows of horror, and a lot of people don't come back. For me, it was kind of a fork in the road that made me realize I wanted to come back. But I was diagnosed with anorexia and bulimia, and
how old were you then?
Put in treatment. 21. Okay. 20 when it really first started.
Had you been dealing with it as a teenager?
No,
earlier
not
years?
at all. No problems whatsoever. It was a kind of a mid-college thing.
Yeah.
That led to a cocaine addiction, and so I was just deep in self-berating, and just feeling like I was at the bottom of the barrel and worth nothing, and really didn't really see any reason to go on. So. Tried to take my life a couple times and wasn't successful, obviously. And that's when I kind of hit that fork in the road that I am going to die from this if I don't try to do something and take another path.
Just unbelievable strength to be able to, realize that you need to do that, because people who suffer, have a family member who suffered from anorexia, and when they're so in such a deep, dark place, it's very difficult to get to them, to have them realize what they're really going through. Meaning for them to just acknowledge that they are suffering from something. Yeah. It's a denial thing.
I would say there is some denial, but I would make a correction if that's okay. That it wasn't my strength. Most of those women and men are very strong. And that's why they've been able to starve themselves. It's really, really hard to starve yourself. Yeah. Everything your body is made of is to survive, right? That's all our bodies are ever doing at any given period of any given day. And so they're fighting you tooth and nail every minute that you're starving yourself. So I wasn't all that strong. I think I was just one of the lucky ones, in terms of there was something inside of me that said, if I die, that's going to be really lame for my family. And so I want to show them that I'm going to try to live. I won't be successful. I don't really want to. And I don't really think I can get better. I don't see my life outside of anorexia and drugs, but I got to show them that I tried, because then when I die, they'll at least be able to know that I tried. I don't know what that rationale comes from, but that's what the space that I was in, because I think they would have been just as sad whether I tried or didn't try. But that's what I told myself. And on that beginning of that journey, I just had the right person at the right time, the right therapist, because I'd had a lot of different therapists and it had been in inpatient treatment and outpatient treatment and all of it. And it was just... And
you got the right person.
I got the right person.
What would you say to yourself if you could go back with the wisdom you have now and the journey that you've been through in life? If you could go back and talk to yourself then as that young person, what would you say to yourself? What was missing in your life at that point? Something that you would have heard that would have helped you.
It's hard to do that, because I am who I am because of those years. So I don't know that I would have wanted to tell my 20-year-old self, like, don't go down this path.
Right.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Maybe I'd be doing something else that I like. I have no
Right.
idea, but it's difficult to go back and say, erase a whole period of my life that was
Right.
really gnarly and hard, but it was what came out of it was good, or to me, it's good.
Well,
but
maybe
I
another
think
question.
maybe,
Another question might be then, what would you say to another 20-year-old
Right.
woman
Right.
now?
I think, and I do say, because
Of course.
I mentor a fair amount of them over the years, is just the simple truth that you're worthy, and that's what's missing in that period of time. Now, that's not. Oh, thanks, I'm worthy. Let me get on that and heal. But it's words that they've maybe never heard before, that maybe no one ever thought to tell them, because most people are just saying, you just need to eat. You need to eat more. You just eat a cheeseburger and you'll feel better. Because nobody understands eating disorders. They don't understand it as a disease. They don't understand it that it is very similar to any other addiction that we have, whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, that you're acting out on inner pain. And that's just our way of acting out. It just was the poison that we picked, that I picked, that other eating disorder sufferers picked. It's not, it's very rarely just specifically about, I want to be skinny. Some of it is about, I would like to disappear from the planet. I did have those feelings, and the smaller you get, the less noticed you get. Just from anybody, somebody on the street or friends, they stop inviting you places. They stop wanting you around. You're sick. You're kind of scary looking. And so wanting to disappear, yes, is something that happens, but it's very rarely like, I just want to be really skinny, so now I'm going to stop eating as of tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's not how it goes. For me, it was trying to assert some control over my life where I felt very out of control. So, some addiction is about asserting control. Some addiction is about numbing out from the pain. Many addictions are about numbing out from the pain, especially drugs and alcohol, but also an eating disorder, because as you go along, the more you starve yourself, the more euphoric the feeling is. Oh. And it's a high. And it rivaled the cocaine high.
What does it feel like?
It's euphoric. Your body hits this state where, it's definitely out of homeostasis, but it feels like the opioid sister of homeostasis, where it's like everything feels really good.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Oh, it's very common. I think whoever designed us made it that way, because as we know in history, many people have actually starved to death, not eating disorders, right? In scenarios in history. And it makes those final days painless. Because you hit that euphoric state. So
that euphoric state, was that where the cocaine came in, where you thought maybe I can duplicate it with cocaine so I can have like a...
I just was dealing with so much self-misery and hatred that cocaine was just a way to escape and pretend like all of that wasn't going on. So I could go out, so I could be social, because I'm a pretty extreme introvert by nature. And so when I had my eating disorder, I didn't leave the house. Like ever, really. I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't have friendships. I couldn't keep relationships.
So the first time I met you, I remember just thinking, what an extrovert. Like meeting you the first time, you're so vivacious and full of energy and everything. I didn't know, your history at that point. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to imagine you as someone that locked yourself away.
Yeah. Introversion, extroversion is 75% of the world are extroverts. So introverts are definitely in the minority. And it doesn't mean that you can't speak in public, or you can't have a rich, interesting conversation with people. It just means that when you need to recharge your batteries, you need to be alone. Like, I don't gain energy from being in groups of people, or even small groups of people. I gain energy from being alone. I recharge my batteries by being alone, or with my husband or a really, really dear friend.
Am I right that when you were going through this challenging time, you would get on like a stepping machine and you'd be on it? You could be on it for 8 hours and just go and go and go. You're
not really thinking clearly. Now I am going to go like we would normally now, right? It just became, this just what I did. And the kind of process that I had each day or each week, I would add more misery onto the process. So maybe I was doing a couple of hours in the Stairmaster, and then, I don't even know how a body takes 8 hours. I mean, I took a few breaks, but I would literally spend all day there. Like,
were you modeling during this time? Were you?
No, because I couldn't. I wasn't functioning.
You weren't functioning.
Right. But at the beginning, I was.
Oh, before that.
Well, the beginning of my eating disorder, which really had nothing to do with modeling, except for the fact that I felt like I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And so that's when that sort of, I had graduated college and I'd majored in journalism, and I did an internship my senior year in journalism, and in entertainment news, and I hated it. And so I had that feeling of, oh my gosh, I just did 4 years of this and I was ready to go, light the world on fire as a journalist, and I hated everything about it. And so what am I going to do now? Am I going to go back to school? And I just started, I kind of got these modeling gigs. I'm like, well, I'll make some money. I'll move to New York and do this. And I just felt scared and out of control and very fearful for my future. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And as a type A, right? Like that's a horrible feeling to have. So it was more because I was like, well, modeling's not it, but you have to make a living. And I had school loans to pay back.
So this therapist who sounds like helped save your life.
Yeah.
Tell us about your therapist.
Well, I think the big difference between the others and her were the ones before, they were doing quite a bit of information gathering the first, 6 sessions, which is a lot. And I just felt always very judged by them. Like they were the typical, psychiatrist with the glasses down on their nose, and they had like the yellow legal pad with the pen, and
it felt impersonal.
Yeah. And I'm like, they just were writing a lot. And I just was like, what are you writing about me over there?
You wanted that connection.
Yeah. Like put the pad down. Like you should be good enough so that we can have a conversation. And so I had like 3 experiences with different ones in Philadelphia and New York. And so, the therapist that I met out here, I saw an ad in the LA Weekly. It was in the back when there was ads, little tiny
when
ads.
People read newspapers.
Back when a lot of things are different than they are now. And she was speaking at the basement of a Borders bookstore on like fear and anxiety. And I don't know why that caught. I mean, I definitely I definitely had a lot of anxiety. I don't know about fear, but I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. And something just told me to go. And so I went and she spoke. Yeah. I mean, it's because it was really kind of random that it was the teeny tiny, it wasn't even an ad. It was just here's things to do this week.
But it spoke to you.
Yeah. So I went and I went up to her afterwards and I said, do you do private work? I need help now.
Wow.
And she did. And so the way that she does her therapy, she calls it meditation therapy, but what it really consists of, first of all, she spent like a day trying to understand my past. And then she said, listen, we got to get working now. We'll talk about your childhood in 6 months, which is what we did. And then we dove into some stuff and uncovered some things. But, so she used, blue sticky dots. That I had to go to CVS and buy these little blue sticky dots, and I had to put them on trigger places in my home. So the refrigerator, the toilet, because by this point I'm in full blown bulimia. And, I also had an anger stick that she gave me. So let's just say I wanted to binge and purge, go to the refrigerator, see the blue dot. This is what I had to do. I had to stop and sit, and it could be for 2 seconds, or if I could make it to 10 seconds, great.
Right,
just sit right there and feel in my physical body where the pain and anxiety was residing.
Wow.
For me, it was almost always in my mid-chest, but some people it's in their head, in their throat, in their deep belly, in their back. Identify that, because I had zero connection with my body by that point. I didn't know when I was hungry, when I was not hungry. I didn't,
you weren't
my
in
whole
touch
system,
with your body.
Not at all. There were 2 different, completely separate entities: my brain and emotion, and my body. So she made me identify and feel what was happening. So, and if I still wanted to binge, I could do that, but I had to do that first. Well, that seemed like a pretty good deal to me. I can still.
You can still get what you want.
Yeah, still get what I want. I'll do this little thing because I'm paying for it. And, she seems like she's got some ideas and we'll roll with it. Well, of course, over time, I would find myself over a couple of years meditating in the kitchen for 2 hours.
Wow.
Like really identifying it. And then, I won't go through all of the different aspects and questions that she would take. Then she made a meditation tape for me that I would take myself through and identify. But if I did binge and purge, and then I started the self-hatred and the self-loathing, I had an anger stick that we used to somewhere to put that self hatred
to take it out of your body,
to take it out of my body and place in the anger
somewhere.
stick. So it was like, I mean, that looked like a crazy person because you were down on all fours with the anger stick. It's just a towel rolled up in a bunch of rubber bands, which I still have. And
this woman sounds amazing.
She's insane.
Wow.
Like, saved my life. I'm sure saved many.
Is she still?
I'm always sending people to her.
Really?
And some of them connect with her and some of them don't, right? Like she and I just
Something worked. And she wasn't the person with the glasses and the pad, and she was looking at you.
I don't remember ever writing anything down.
Right.
She was a genius.
She was connecting with you, trying to understand you.
Yeah.
And this worked. I mean, but it took a long time. How many years?
Yeah. I got better in the first 6 months. I mean, I got better. Well, I got better the first week, really.
There's this quote, and you said, for all those listening out there, hear this. Once an anorexic, not always an anorexic. It's not you, and you can beat it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, in the alcoholism world, obviously, and I have great respect for the 12 steps, but that is the kind of the base of it, right?
Right, where you admit that you're an alcoholic and you're always an alcoholic.
Right. So with an eating disorder, you obviously don't have the option to never eat again, like they can never drink again.
Yeah.
Like they just can't touch it again. So we have to heal differently. And we have to heal where you are not an anorexic anymore because you have to have food in your life 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times a day.
Exactly. It's one thing to say, okay, no alcohol, but you have to eat.
What are you going to do? So that is your problem, is you're not doing it. So,
right.
I know people who have died of anorexia. So there are people that are always an anorexic, right? I mean, with anything, most definitely. But I also know a lot of people that are living free of that terror in your head that is a 24/7 conversation with yourself on how you're going to better starve yourself. You can't wake up from. You can't, right. Yeah, total nightmare. Any addiction, it's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare that you're living 24/7, and I'm living outside the confines of that. 100%. And I could say that with my whole heart and my whole self in truth, that I never, ever think about, what I'm going to eat or what's in it or how many calories or weighing it or counting it. In fact, as I was starting to race and we had some nutritionists, talking to us and coming on board, that was also for my therapist. I will never weigh anything. I will never count anything, and I will never look at calorie content. Sadly, as an anorexic, you've memorized all calorie content of every single food in the universe. So I had to kind of, some of that's gone now, but you just kind of know it, because it's still in there. But those were rules that I had, because as a cyclist, right? Like there's people weighing their food, and and I was like, this will not be a part of my regimen. No. I won't go back in there. So I set some boundaries. I had to set some big boundaries.
Absolutely, and relearn everything you had practiced with your relationship with food. I mean, it's a whole change, right?
Right.
But this whole idea of cycling and that day that I met you, you'd never raced before. How do you go from being a bike messenger, someone who loves working out, to then going, hey, you know what? I have got some amazing potential to be a world-class cyclist. How did that happen?
I know that never happened.
No?
No. Again, back to my amazing therapist. She was the one that had me choose an activity that I didn't have any negative connections with from my anorexic days.
Yes.
And that's when I chose the bike, because I was like, well, I'm out. I had just, I'd only been out in LA a little while, right? Yep. And it feels like it's pretty much sunny from what I can tell, 365 days a year. And that sounds freeing and fun. And so how about I get a bike? And she kind of agreed to that deal. She said, I think you're onto something. I think that sounds good. It's nothing to do with the gym. You're not going to. So that's how I chose that, and was just riding, and then rode with you guys. It was kind of one of those things that where people from the outside, a bunch of dudes, because it's so male dominated, way more back then than it is now even. And shortly after that, I did the California AIDS ride, right from San Francisco to LA on that same horrible mountain bike. Once I started racing, it was like, everyone was better than I was. So then it flip-flopped real quick. But before I started racing, it was, the guys at the AIDS ride, I was riding the front pack every day, and they're like, this is not normal.
No.
What
It wasn't normal what you did in Catalina that day.
No, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm tired, but you know, I ate like 7 Cliff Bars a day, but this is pretty good. And I did the 5th day of the AIDS ride have to go to the hospital because of my Cliff Bar intake. Love Cliff Bars.
What?
Because you can't eat 7 a day. Just side note for anyone listening, constipation.
That sounds like...
oh my God.
Talk about packing bricks, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
It does not sound like a good concoction for regularity.
It's like they didn't stop at the lunch stops, like the fast guys, right? You know that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize they wouldn't. And so when I realized after the first day we're not stopping,
right.
I just stuffed like 7 Cliff Bars in my pockets and was like, okay, I gotta fuel myself. So not a good idea.
No.
But then once I started racing, I mean, yes, I moved to the categories. I moved up from a 4 to a 1 in a year, which is kind of a short time. But once I got there,
that's a very short amount of time.
I was terrible compared to everyone else. I mean, terrible.
Because of your bike handling skill? I mean, because you had the engine. It was more...
but I didn't have that kind of engine. I mean, I got on the U.S. national team early. Looking back on it, it was way too early because we were, on that team is... athletes who have been extraordinary athletes their whole life.
From when they were teens.
Amber Neben, Kristen Armstrong, Kimberly Baldwin had been runners and triathletes. Like they had this engine that they had built from when they were quite young. Yeah. So I wasn't even in that conversation. I mean, Kim Anderson, this is the team I'm on. So we're going to Europe and I'm a domestique for like 10 minutes because I couldn't stay with them longer than that.
For those who don't know, means you're working for everybody else, meaning you're prepared to sacrifice yourself for your lead riders. Yep.
Exactly. And so I remember one race in Czech Republic, we were riding the day before, just like on a mellow ride. You just got off the plane. I'm riding next to Amber Neben. We are riding maybe 15 miles an hour, maybe 16. I mean, we're riding pretty mellow. And my heart rate was at 165. And I look over and she's at 85. And I was like, oh, wow. I don't know. It was a climbing race. She was a team leader. I'm like, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be with you tomorrow. It could be literally about 6 or 7 seconds, but you just get on my wheel because that's all I'm going to have.
I'm going to give you everything I got.
That was the difference though. I mean, I didn't have an engine. I had like kind of, but not that caliber of an engine. So I spent many years as a domestique just dying, getting the shit kicked out of me, dying every race, every minute of every day. Like, why am I doing this?
So how long from when you started racing are you now lining up to then becoming an Olympian? Because it doesn't seem like it was that many years.
12.
Wow.
I guess. Yeah.
And so everybody else has almost like got double the amount of time that you have on a bike in terms of racing. Like they started when they were probably 10, 11 or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, as far as who we competed against at the Olympics, I mean, the Kiwis, the Brits, the Aussies, the Canadians, those teams were all in their early 20s. The Brits were 19, 20, and 21, those 3 girls. And I was 40. I was 5 months shy of my 40th birthday.
Unbelievable.
So they were like my children.
2007 was your first time on the track. So you'd ridden on the road, but then 2007 you go to the track for the first time, and you were saying that when you looked at that track and you look at the banking, what's the banking? How many degrees?
44 degrees.
44 degrees, which is crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. Especially if you go to the top and look down, which I never did.
On the corners,
it just like, why this doesn't make any sense that the tires are sticking.
So when you get to the track, when do you realize, oh, it's the track, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to get off the road and I'm going to go to the track. When did you make that decision?
I was doing really well in what you and I know is prologue. So everyone out there, it's just a much shorter time trial. They usually do prologues at the beginning of the Tour de France. So just kind of like set the GC. It's a little bit of a show, but it's also a really hard race. But they're 6 or 7 minutes. And I had, on an international level, I was winning those against the best in the world. So my coach was like, I just have a middle distance talent. I just have a good mix of aerobic and anaerobic capacity together. So he suggested I try the individual pursuit. And I also was ready to try something new. Like I was getting bored with the road. I was 35, I guess, at that. And I was like, I'm ready to retire. Let's go on new adventures in life. Let's do something else. I just was kind of like, that was amazing, and never thought I would get to the points that I did on the road. So it was also just like, okay, let's see how this track thing is, because it scared me to death. And I liked that. There's nothing more, you never feel more alive than when you're scared to death, ever. And I miss that feeling sometimes now. So it got me addicted pretty quickly.
And so tell us, you go to the Olympics and you do really well. You realize you're world class. And
right.
I mean, how amazing is that for you as a lifelong achievement?
I mean, it felt like a dream the whole time I was there. I was an older athlete, like I mentioned, so I really took the time and the energy to soak up that whole experience, right? Because I was like, I won't be here again. Like, we're not going to be 44 at the, no. So that was such a gift. I did a lot of sports psychology to get to that place where I could soak it up, because it's such an insane environment. And that's why, multi-world champions go to Olympics and get 7th, because it's just like, it's such an insane environment. But really for me, I don't know, the special part about it, by that point, I was not willing to suffer as much anymore just for myself. I had been suffering all through my eating disorder and my drug addiction, and then suffering as a cyclist. And I was kind of to the point where it was like, why? But suffering for my teammates and the 2 other people I went to the line with, who were counting on me nailing a performance on one moment in one given day, was the coolest feeling I've ever had.
Hey, tell us your team, who your teammates were.
Sarah Hammer and Jenny Reed and Lauren Tamayo. Because you take 4, you ride 3. Now they ride 4 and take 5. Anyway. Yeah.
And then in the final, you're against Great Britain, right?
Correct. Yeah. The big ride was against Australia to make it to the gold medal final. We'd never beaten Australia's A team ever in history. We'd never beat the Kiwis A team ever in history. We'd never beaten the Canadians ever. I mean, we were underdogs. I mean, the bookies had us at 5th place at best in London.
And Great Britain they were right from the beginning. They were seeded number 1, right? They were expected to
they
win.
broke the world record every time they rode. They were definitely a step above, but we qualified 2nd, which was shocking to all of those other teams. But it was close. The Brits were a 2nd ahead of everyone, but everyone else was really close. And so when we raced Australia to make it to the gold medal final, we beat them by 8/100ths of a second.
Wow.
And this is a 3-minute, 15-second event.
Yeah.
So that's a while for it to be, it was so tight, so close. And we were down by 1.6 seconds at one point, which to my knowledge, and I've done the research, nobody, male or female, has ever come back from that much of a deficit at a World Championships or Olympics to come back from that, because that's a big deficit to come back in just 3 minutes at 1.6 seconds.
Can you imagine on Catalina Island if we'd had this, you were having this conversation and we said, hey, listen, one day you're going to go to the Olympics, you're going to ride against the best riders in the world, and you're going to have an Olympic silver medal?
So I probably would have quit immediately if someone had told me that, because I would have been so scared to hear that.
Yeah.
That's why you don't know these things ahead of time in your life.
Wow, we're really proud of you. I mean, it's really, really awesome. If I'm not mistaken, you were a vegan when you did this. Is this correct? I was
a vegetarian and moving towards veganism as I was uncovering more research and understanding. However, I was never a milk or yogurt or cheese person. So it was the eggs that were still in, a little bit of eggs were still in your diet. Right.
What did your coaches think of you going for Olympic glory?
Right.
While you were a vegetarian?
Yeah, they thought I was nuts for sure. Like they did.
Why?
Because we've been fed propaganda by the meat and dairy industry right? It's true, for our whole entire lives, that not only is it help us to maintain good health, but athletes produce the most premium performances off of that fuel source, which is BS. It's actually really detrimental. So I just, they're trying to do the right thing, you know, and they're thinking, oh, you're gonna take these whole food groups out that they're considering food groups. I don't even consider either one of them food, but that's how they are thinking of it. And so it was I just think that they were fearful that, I don't know, I was going to waste away, I guess.
It's such a huge part of our diet, right?
Wherever
you go.
It is.
We're encouraged to have milkshakes. We're encouraged to have milk in our cereal. It's yogurts. It's everywhere, right?
Brought to you by the dairy industry. It's even on our, it's even in our food pyramid. But the United States Department of Agriculture creates our food pyramid. So that's obviously a conflict of interest.
Taking wheat is in there somewhere, is it?
Right, exactly. Wheat and grains. And so, just from the get-go, we're the only species on a planet that eats the baby food of another species. There are no other species that still steal the mother's milk from another species. So it's a bit odd if we think about it, that not only are we not drinking our own mother's milk past 2, then we, or whatever age it might be, that then we transfer over to another species and drink that species' baby food. It's strange really when you look at it, but then when you deconstruct what is in cow's milk and you deconstruct even the nutrients or whatever you might want to call them, they are excellent nutrients for a tiny baby calf to grow up into a couple 1,000-pound cow in a very short period of time. They gain 7 or 8 pounds a day.
Wow.
Right. So when we're putting that fluid in us, we are getting what the dairy industry is constantly saying that we're getting from this food is just the 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat, which every food on the planet provides carbohydrates, protein, and fat. They're macronutrients. If it was alive, so if it's a plant, it was alive, it has all 3 of those things in it. So there's endless sources of things that have those 3 macronutrients in it. So it has those in it, but within that, you have a pretty gnarly cocktail and strong cocktail, because this is a lactating mother of hormones. So you're getting estrogen, you're getting testosterone, you're getting progesterone, you're getting quite a bit of cortisol, which is our stress hormone that nobody needs more of. You're getting saturated fat, which inhibits our blood flow and increases inflammation as athletes and, well, anyone. You're getting trans fat, which is just disgusting, right? Like that's definitely hardening our arteries and not even allowing our endothelial cell function to work or flow correctly. You also get weird things, which weird things I'm saying in terms of human beings. So there's all different molecules in species that aren't cross molecules in other species. So there's something in cow's milk that's just a sugar molecule, seems pretty benign. It's called NEU5GC. The human body makes NEU5AC, which is similar, but
not the same.
Just not exactly the same. So things like that, when that comes into our system, this sugar molecule, our body doesn't recognize it, and our body creates antibodies. When anything comes in that our body doesn't recognize, whatever it might be, smoke, pollution, our body starts creating antibodies to fight this foreign object. And so antibodies create great amount of inflammation, and inflammation is the precursor to all disease.
So this explains all the congestion that people have.
Yeah. 65% of the population cannot digest cow's milk. They have lactose intolerance. And it's so, now the dairy industry.
So a lot of people don't know. They just don't know.
So many people don't know. They have
Right.
no idea why they're waking up with headaches, and they're waking up feeling congested, like they have a cold, and it kind of gets a little bit better as the day goes along until they have more dairy. Stomach pain, bloating, gas, diarrhea. And the best way to do it is just take it out for 3 weeks and see if you feel better. I mean, no harm, no foul. If you're not allergic to it, or you don't have lactose intolerance, you'll feel the same way and it's something else. But if you are, oh my God, your whole life changes.
So you're up against $1 billion industry. I mean, you're talking about, milk is good. You're talking about something that is put into the bottles of babies from an early age, and then we continue to consume for the rest of our lives. So why have you taken on this cause and this battle? Why are you so passionate about it, and why do you feel like something has to be done?
I don't feel like we should be stealing something from another species for ourselves to think we're benefiting, but for something that is completely unnecessary. And not only that, making our population, our human population, very, very, very sick. I'm just here. It's the truth.
Yeah.
You asked that's it. I just finally was like, that's enough.
So you're watching this from the sidelines for a long time. You're making a choice. You've made a switch because you felt like it was good for you. Mm-hmm. And then at some point you decide, well, hold on a second. I know it's good for me. I've seen the results. Mm-hmm. I went and won a silver medal, making a lifestyle change with my diet against what was common belief. And then you create this switch for good, right? Which is the acronym S4G, right? Mm-hmm. S for G. It should roll off the tongue nicely. S for G.
That's good.
And so, so you've got this absolute passion and drive to be able to want to do something. What was the impetus? What was the catalyst for you to say, okay, I got to go out and do this for other people as well, not just for me?
Yeah, I was sitting on the couch watching Olympic trials, 2018 Winter Olympic trials, different friends, maybe going to make the team, excited about how that felt at that time, but so much happier on my couch with a glass of wine than doing the Olympic trials. And a Milk Life commercial came on. And I knew that Milk Life is the partnership between the Milk Pet Board and the United States Olympic Committee. And it started back in 2008, it's supposed to go through 2020. And so I knew about this partnership. It was during the years that I was, connected to the USOC.
And there's big money there.
Big money. And all the advertising throughout the Olympic training centers, it's everywhere. Dairy is everywhere, and they push it and they shove it. And we all know about the Built with Chocolate Milk campaign too. And so it's really, they're using athletes and their performances to try and say that this is a healthy food or healthy fluid.
And the irony here is, based on what you're saying, is that these athletes, these world-class athletes, are, based on science, are not performing as well as they would be if they weren't consuming this product.
Absolutely, all day long. And they say in the commercial that I was watching, 9 out of 10 Olympians grew up drinking milk, as if what you drink as a 5-year-old has anything to do with it.
They're here because as a result of investing in this.
Drinking cow's milk as like babies or something. So that was really the catalyst of where I just had enough. I'd had enough of the lies and the misinformation. People are getting sick. 265 million cows are having their babies dragged away from them every year for nothing, for no reason. What are we doing?
When we have other fuel sources where we can get the same nutrients
and better. Right. So you want those nutrients. You want everything you eat as an athlete. You want to be able to do something in your body that's productive. You want to be able to repair, replenish, recover. And you're going to do that with a food source that has most good with very little bad. So with cow's milk, you get some good because you get your micronutrients, but you get a whole lot of nasty and a whole lot of bad and fluid that's going to do a lot of damage to the human body.
So you're saying it's not that there isn't goodness in the product. It's just that there are these byproducts there that we don't need, that we're not designed to digest. And so we can get those good things from other sources. So why not get it from those other sources? And right. So have you personally had any pushback from this industry? Like people come to you and say, "Hey, Dotsie,
it's worse than that." So when I had that thought on the couch and I thought I want to do something about this, and I said, somebody needs to do something about this.
Yeah, can I read the quote?
Kind of the next day.
I just can't stand idly by and watch this suffering and misinformation. I cannot watch it continue.
Yeah. And that's it. That's how I felt. So I went to some really talented people, production company, an incredible funder, Louis Facios, the director of The Cove, and we filmed a commercial of 7 vegan Olympians that said, "You do not need cow's milk for performances," and
look at us,
and even So we took that commercial. And we made it in about 5 weeks, because from Olympic trials to the end of Olympics, we put it on NBC on the closing ceremonies of Olympic Games. We were supposed to air in 6 cities across the nation. I'm out here in LA, can't wait. I was supposed to air at like 7/12 or something. And it airs twice in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Olympic Committee freaks out, calls NBC, gets it pulled.
To stop it making its way across the country.
Because they're like freaked out, because people have been watching milk commercials for 3 weeks. So to see, wait, this isn't actually good for me is shocking.
Well, it is. Dotsie, it is a surprise.
I know it is.
Even the information that you've given me today, I've done some research, but even just the way you've articulated a lot of this, it's really making me think. It's like listening to you. One of the things I'm thinking I would like to try to see what would happen, like because I do drink milk, and I've always loved milk. But listening to you, I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe I should try just to stop for how long would it take me if I stopped having milk for, say, would I need to stop for a month before I saw differences in? Well,
yeah. So you could switch for fun. You don't have to switch for good. You can take it. You could take it step by step.
Is this some kind of program you have? Switch for fun?
I just thought of it just now because
switch for fun.
I don't want you to go into it feeling like this has to be forever.
Yeah.
This is so. First of all, I do not have any kind of cow's milk intolerance or allergy. So you may not either. Like I could eat a gallon of ice cream back in the day and I felt great.
Right.
Whereas most people are completely bent over. 65%
so
of us
some people
anyway.
might end up being, they might switch and it is for the better, and some might just switch because it's for good. Meaning you may be fine to have milk. Some people may be fine to have milk, but what you're saying is it's deeper than that. It may affect your health, but it may also have the benefit, or it will have the benefit of also taking away the need for the milk.
Yeah. So you will be much better off health-wise if you stop it. The immediate, you were saying how long it would take, right? The immediate changes, if you don't have an allergy or intolerance to cow's milk, then you're not going to tomorrow be like, oh, my sniffles are gone and my asthma is gone because you didn't have it in the first place.
Right.
However, what will change over time from the inflammation markers in your body, which are the starters of all disease, all the way from, heart disease to diabetes to autoimmune diseases. That is the catalyst for starting those diseases. So, and animal foods are the source of inflammation, period. There's almost zero inflammation in plant foods. So that creates inflammation in your body, I should say. It is significantly lower. So your health overall and your ability to age slower, because another thing, inflammation increases our aging. So your biological age might be something, but your chronological age will be completely different if you take out animal foods.
How much has the world changed as far as a vegan lifestyle or vegetarian lifestyle since 2012? Like just in the last, say, 6 years.
Big time, I think. Yeah,
big time. I mean, in terms of just what I've noticed, I remember thinking, God, I could never be a vegetarian just because there's just so many things I would miss.
I used to think that too. I know.
I'm like, and what would I eat?
Yeah.
And now my friends, I love going to India. I love eating Indian food. I could easily be a vegetarian in India because the food is so extraordinary. But now I'm finding there are more and more choices, vegetarian choices, and I'm finding myself eating less and less meat just because I'm loving the flavors and tastes of vegetarian food. And I feel like there's a bit of a revolution going on right now in terms of that awareness. And is that because I live in the LA bubble and maybe it's happening in New York, but it's not happening in the rest of the country?
No, it is. I mean, first of all, the reason that I think you like Indian food so much is because they use a ton of really rich, flavorful spices, right? And herbs and marinades. All of that flavor is from plants. Yeah. Right? That's why it's
amazing.
Right? Like it's incredible. All flavor comes from plant. We never just throw like a dead animal on the barbecue.
Right.
We marinate it overnight. We tenderize it. We flavor it with all these wonderful herbs and spices. So that's where our flavor is coming from. Yeah. So that's, first of all, people think vegan or plant-based, no flavor. It's like, oh no, that's where the flavor resides in the first place. But I was just in Minneapolis last week. And there were vegan restaurants everywhere. It was crazy. So it's happening not just on the coast. There are places that are slightly more challenging than others, but it's a million times easier.
Well, and also it used to be, I remember trying some vegetarian food and people were like, oh, this is vegetarian chicken. And 10, 15 years ago trying it and going, oh man, there's no way I could eat that. That's not anything. Yeah. But today I've been fooled. I've had people say, okay, eat this and tell me what it is. And I'm like, well, it's chicken with some kind of like, it sounds like, and they're like, no, that's not chicken at all. Yeah. It's a vegetarian choice. And I'm really shocked.
There's people doing the coolest stuff in the food space.
Right. It's just, and it's more accessible. Yeah. So I guess if there's one thing, if you could you've had a magic wand, right? If you could turn your what was your anger stick? If you could turn your anger stick into a magic wand with the blue dot on it.
I'll have to get back out of the closet. Maybe it is one by now.
Maybe you can do that with the blue dot on it, and you could just wave that magic wand, and you could change things. What's the one thing you would change for people in terms of the way that they're eating right now? Like maybe something like a first step. What would you love to see? What's the biggest message you want to get out there to people?
Drop dairy. I mean, it's what I'm doing. It's what I believe in. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't believe in it with my whole heart, and being the executive director of this nonprofit and this movement. And it's what I spend all day, every day doing. So
Is it growing?
Would be the movement as a whole. I mean, we were talking about I feel like it's completely exploding.
So where do people go if they want more information, they want to understand more, and they want to, dig in a little deeper? And they've been listening to you and they've been thinking, wow, you really got me thinking.
Yeah.
What do they do?
So of course they can come to switchforgood.org. And that's like the number 4, not FOR. There's loads of resources on there. We even have a lactose quiz on there so you can discern whether you are lactose intolerant or not. But there's great places like chooseveg.com. They have incredible resources and recipes. And then there's some fantastic vegan athletes that do great work. Nimai Delgado, the bodybuilder, he has
he's a bodybuilder
and he is ripped and shredded. He was on the cover of Muscle and Fitness like 3 months ago, and he is vegan. He actually is vegetarian since birth. He's never eaten a piece of meat in his life.
What?
Ever. And he's huge. And he has a whole like program, right? So the training, the workout, and the food. Rich Roll does great work. David Carter, ex-NFL player. So, and I'm saying the guys because most people, I think most men are the most challenged by, I'm going to go vegetarian or vegan,
right? Because
it's that machismo thing that for our whole lives they've said in commercials, and they've played it to men that you need meat. Men need meat. It's like Neanderthal.
Men kill meat.
Men kill meat.
Men kill meat.
But we're not killing our own meat.
No.
We're paying somebody else to do it for us. So I think it's incredibly inspiring for people to see big dudes, NFL players, bodybuilders, and even, rich and ultra endurance.
Because you're right. You don't think of a big dude, a big NFL player, a bodybuilder being a vegetarian or a vegan. You just don't think of that.
It's just not something that pops in anyone's mind.
So the number one takeaway then, Dotsie, from our conversation, what would you like to motivate people to do listening to you today? What's the number one takeaway?
Yeah. I am forever inspired by people taking control of their own lives. So I feel like so many of us are kind of running this hamster wheel rat race and not really stepping up and saying, I own this. This is my life and I have the control. We don't have control over a lot of peripheral things, but we do know some things that we do have control of.
We have control about what's put in our body.
We definitely have control over that. We have control over how we react to situations. We have control over how we treat other people and other species. We have control over what we're doing to our planet. There's quite a bit that we have control over. So step up to the plate, recognize that, and say, I'm going to start making steps every day towards making the place better because I can. Self-realization that turns into control the things that you do have control over for goodness. And not for harm, obviously.
So you're a disruptor for goodness. I mean, you're disrupting you're disrupting an industry, and you're saying, hey, let's rethink this.
And you're not doing your best work. Because you're not making it work. You're not disrupting. You're not actually reaching your goal if people aren't pissed about it. So I don't know. Okay, well, it still sounds a little scary, but we're up for it.
Well, you're a powerful woman. With well, you are. Both
with my magic wand, I am.
Physically and mentally. Yeah, wait till you get that wand in your hand. You go home and you get that angry stick, okay? And you just say, angry stick, you're no longer an angry stick. You are my magic wand.
All right. I am going to go dig that thing out.
I'm telling you.
That's
just
cool.
Wave it on people.
Thank you for that.
You'll change the world. Just like that. You already are.
When I'm walking around Santa Monica crazy with that anger stick and you'll be like, I don't know who that is. Like, you said it was a magic wand.
Well, Phil told me it was a magic wand with the little dot on it. Well, look, it's wonderful to talk to you. I always end the podcast with a couple of questions.
Okay.
And the first question is, if you were going to take a road trip with anybody, let's say you're going to drive across America, and you could take 3 companions in the car with you, living or dead, from history.
Yeah.
Who would you take in the car with you?
Well, can I take my magic wand as one?
Absolutely. Well, your magic wand that's part of you.
But I have to choose it to take it with me. Yeah. Gosh, I think...
what about the head of the dairy industry or something?
I know. Well, gosh, I was going to fill a car with people I like.
Oh, okay.
I guess maybe that's not a good idea. We got a better conversation without that happening. Nelson Mandela and Rosa Parks are two people that I would
powerful.
like to meet and understand their story and what made them stand up with their actions and not so much their voice. Because Rosa Parks didn't say a word. She just walked the walk. And to me, that's always the most powerful way to get to anything. Because we do a lot of talking, we're doing podcasts, we're talking, it's just talking. So the action of how she found that within herself, that bravery. Because they could have just killed her right then and there. That's what you would have been afraid of at that moment. I think that they would have just shot you or something. And so she really, I'm going to take them in my magic wand. Because then, wow, could you imagine?
Yeah. You could just lean out the window every now and again and just do, a couple of those. And then your last day on Earth, how would you plan that day if you knew you had your last day on Earth? I
think about that more often than I should, I think.
What do you mean by that?
I want to make sure that I'm doing what I would be doing if this were my last day on Earth. And
you want to live that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can honestly say it's what I did today.
Wow. So
I want to keep that going.
That's wonderful, right? Because how many people really do feel like they are living like they would be if it was their last day on Earth, which is, to me, as part of what this podcast is all about, is just trying to encourage people to say, ask yourself that question. If you knew you only had 24 hours to live, what would you want to do? What would you regret not having done when you take your last breath? I was lucky enough to go on Oprah a number of times, and that was the question that we put out to the audience was, if you were going to take your last breath tomorrow at 3:00, what would you most regret not doing in your life?
Yeah.
And it does force you, but it forces you to think, I should be doing it, right?
Yeah, more critically.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to my uncle for whatever years because of some misunderstanding, whatever it is. So
more. It would involve more hugging than my day involved today so far, for sure.
I'll give you a hug.
Okay, all right, then we'll up that ante. Okay.
It's wonderful to talk to you. You, like I said, you're an inspiration. I was so proud to see you at the Olympics after having ridden with you back in 1998, and then just to see you there, I'm like, wow, this woman is crazy strong, and you did so well.
Beginnings. Yeah. Thank you for having me, and
thanks
congrats
for beating the Australians.
Yeah, no worries there.
I'm from New Zealand. I don't know how I feel about you beating the New Zealanders, but at least you beat the Australians.
They were always my favorite girls at Kiwis, I got to tell you.
Were they?
And it's my favorite place on the planet. Yeah, they're just good people, too.
They're good people.
Yeah, they're just cool to be around.
You are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Wonderful.
You can watch this podcast online at philkeoghan.com. And let me know what's on your bucket list. You never know. You might be my next guest. Don't forget, tick it before you kick it.